Good morning. I'm Teresa Etsy from Fast Company's Co-Create, and I'm delighted to be here to introduce this session. I really think it's one of the most interesting areas in the marketing world right now, the coming together of marketing and the startup world. As those of you who were in the previous session know and who met Bob, Fast Company is a product that's all about business innovation. And we recently launched a new channel called Co-Create that's all about creativity as a driver of business. And we're particularly focused on the coming together of the areas of advertising, entertainment, and technology. So I can't wait to hear the panel today. A brand idea today can come from anywhere, and it can be anything. It can be an app, it can be a store, it can be a band that measures how many stairs you climb every day. And obviously, given that tech is driving these ideas, the ideas can come from well outside of the established advertising and marketing framework, including from the startup world. So our panelists today will talk about brand-startup partnerships, the attributes of entrepreneurialism, and some case studies demonstrating when it's worked. So I'm going to introduce Jim Heitner, Worldwide CEO of Initiative, who's going to come up and set up the panel. Keep your questions in mind for later, because there are prizes, apparently. Jim.
Who's paying for the prizes? Good morning, everybody. I'm the new worldwide CEO of Initiative. And you will think, ladies and gentlemen, because I am English, that my first point will be about how well the England football team did last night. But I won't. I'm a very sad individual, ladies and gentlemen. I need help in my life. I have three passions: my family, my clients, and Manchester United Football Club, which used to be a very successful football team. More successful, of course, than the French. My French clients are at the back. We're dead. I guess I do have a fourth passion, and that's to be a leader of a communications agency that delivers results for its clients without pretending that it can do so on its own. We can't. Initiative is a results-obsessed company. We're highly ambitious, we're highly creative, we're highly innovative. But here's a little secret for you. We work with people outside of our organization for the benefit of our clients. We don't keep them secret. We're rather proud of them. And I think every agency should do the same. We hunt down inventive concepts in the advertising and media space. We work with entrepreneurs, who you'll see today, who are responsible for them. And we present those entrepreneurs to our clients very proudly, without shame. Who gets paid for what is irrelevant. So today you'll see a couple of examples of that. A unique presentation in that Initiative has asked two other companies to present with our clients on activities that enhanced our clients' business. So Jim and Billy from Dr. Snapple Group and Hasbro, two of our most important clients, and rather lovely too, and you can't always say that, are joined by Brian and Dan from Kiip and Sharethrough. And I think what they have to say will give you a really fantastic insight into what we've been doing and how you can exploit this wonderful world out there. But first, I'd like to introduce Nick Pahade, who knows nothing about football or soccer, as some of you may say. He is the North American president of Initiative. He is, in fact, a digital entrepreneur himself, and he will take you through a few slides to set up what's out there at the moment. Nick.
Thank you, Jim. Actually, Jim, I fancy myself a Chelsea fan. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us, both here in the room and online. I'm absolutely thrilled and excited to be here and on stage in this wonderful venue. More importantly, with this great group of panelists that I think have some unique insights that I know that they're also very happy and excited to share with you today. So with that said, we'll go ahead and get started. You know, we're here to talk about entrepreneurship and advertising, and ultimately, how do we infuse what it is that we love about entrepreneurs and startups and the risk-taking and the ambition that they bring to the table with what we know works, which is advertising, and we know that advertising can lead marketers to their desired business outcomes by invoking that emotion that many of us are here celebrating this week. So that's what we're looking to talk about. What I find interesting about this slide here is that we're talking about brands at the end of the day. And in some cases, we're talking about brick and mortar brands. In other cases, we're talking about brands that maybe have become iconic brands within the last 5 to 10 years. You look at a brand like Hyundai Kia, and you look at as to where they were 10 years ago to where their brand profile is today. And then you look at folks on the panel and how they have evolved their brands and continued to look to instill and bring emotion and invigoration. And then I think about it from a startup perspective. And I think the fundamental opportunity here is for these two startups that are here to ultimately make it onto this screen in the same vein that a Facebook or a Pinterest or a Google, for that matter, have. Meaning the ability for them to accelerate and be recognized as a mainstream brand. And we're very confident that in a few years, they will be there as well. So there's a notion of why bother? Why should marketers ultimately partner with startups? And it's more than just what's cool and the shiny new toy and doing it because we saw this fancy release and XYZ publication. There's a lot more to it than that. And here are a few reasons as to why ultimately we're looking to create this experience. One, it's an opportunity for agencies, marketers, and brands to work with startups to help shape the future and be involved in that conversation just versus kind of watch on the side. Two, it's a great opportunity for brands to get research and ultimately learnings that they can then apply across a broader array of their brands, both maybe in a specific market or ultimately a global market, and figure out new ways to create a competitive advantage for their brands. Three, it's a great opportunity to go above and beyond paid advertising. One, utilizing platforms to deliver earn and own. Obviously, we've all probably talked about that this week. But two, by even partnering with earlier stage companies and taking advantage of some of the things that they can bring to the table and maybe some of the exposure by partnering with them together, and the PR and the exposure that together they can achieve allows for brands to deliver hopefully beyond paid. And four, it says something about the brand. It says something when you partner with those that are entrepreneurial or maybe other startups, and that you're willing to be innovative, that you're willing to challenge, that you're willing to try new things, and that maybe you don't have all things right, but you're trying to ultimately get there and really connect with your audience and with consumers. And the final thing here is that this is about community. And really it's about building connections to the entrepreneurial community. By showing that you're willing to do this, this is gonna infuse that mindset with other startups, with other VCs, with your other agency partners. By agencies partner with startups and VCs, if they know that one agency is willing to be innovative, they're gonna want that relationship, and they're gonna want their entire portfolio to be exposed to that agency. So it's really about connecting to the entrepreneurial community as well. So these are some of the reasons as to why we think brands and agencies and marketers in general should care. And here's a bit of our perspective in terms of how we look at the world. And it's not just about TV, print, radio, et cetera, but it's about new technologies, ultimately emerging platforms, and then the new brands that are relevant in pop culture. And it's also important, it's something that we believe at Initiative, and I've been at Initiative now for about 2.5 months. And the reason that I joined was about the entrepreneurial ambition that our agency represents. Meaning we don't just say it, we practice what we preach. We have a dedicated unit that's focused on innovations. We publicize weekly newsletters on new startups that get shared with each and every one of our employees. We go above and beyond at a media brands IPG level. We've put millions of dollars into an actual emerging media lab. That's more than just a place like Disney where you go and tour and see new things. It's actually a place where, when we're properly briefed, our resources that are dedicated to the lab build prototypes on behalf of our clients. And it's not just a physical world, it's a virtual world as well. where, in addition to Terry Kawanja and Lumascapes and a lot of the charts out there, we curate our own content. We've created our own virtual lab where we filter through what we think are the best and brightest, and we take them through our experience so that our employees, when they're looking for an emerging media company that connects with males between the ages of 18 to 34 on the mobile device, there's now 10 options for them to consider. This is a dedicated practice. It's absolutely fundamental to the DNA that we're trying to create within Initiative and ultimately IPG Media Brands. And the reason is this. Consumers today are smart. They're inventive. They adopt new technology and change faster than ever before. And my stupid little animation here is trying to show that the target is constantly moving. And we need, as marketers, we need to embrace that. Because if we're willing to embrace it, then I think we're willing to embrace startups, and I think we're actually willing to figure out new ways and the right ways to connect to consumers. So I just wanted to give a little preface to what we're going to now showcase. I promise I'll be quiet, and I'm going to give it to the experts because we have two great marketers here today and two great startups that have connected around creativity. One, using content to create an emotional way to engage with their audience and allow their audience to ultimately share, facilitate, and distribute that content. And two, a way where the brand has interacted with the platform to actually enhance a gaming experience and make it relevant back to the end consumer. So with that said, I'm going to pass it off to my esteemed panelists, Brian and Jim.
Hello.
Good morning.
So we're going to be back and forth. Can you guys hear me? It's all good? Yeah, okay. We're going to be back and forth, so it'll be fun. Hi, I'm Brian Wong, founder and CEO of Kiip.
And I'm Jim Trebilcock, EVP Marketing for Dr. Pepper Snapple.
So I'm really stoked to be here today. Thanks, Nick, again. I'm so happy that you're a startup guy at heart as well, and we're at a startup before, so it all works out. Today we're going to share a bit about sort of what Kiip is, what we did together in a campaign that was orchestrated by Initiative and the lovely folks over there, and kind of go from there. So Kiip, what is Kiip? Super simple, as you can see from the lines there. Play games, win rewards. Now the concept actually came from me being laid off and losing my job. So I'm actually a failure. So I was at a company that we now all know and love as Dig, which kind of went, and I lost my job, unfortunately, but instead of sort of moping around and doing nothing in my life, I decided to start a company based on the simple observation when I was traveling that everybody around me was playing games on their phones and their tablets, and about nobody was being productive. And so my insight was, hey, you know, when people are playing and they're playing these games already in the tens of millions every single second of every day, you know, there's already sort of these achievements that they're hitting, right? You're basically, you know, getting a high score or leveling up or even running 8 miles in Map My Run or something like that. And sort of these achievements contribute to this dopamine rush, right? You're happy. You're like, yeah, I got this. This is awesome, right? We're like, well, awesome. Well, what if we could aggregate these moments, essentially, these moments of happiness, and bring brands in to enhance them and to reward people? And so we basically took experiences like this, which we've all seen. And like, you know, you tap on, you know, you just get fast app switch, it's annoying, you get kicked out, nobody likes this. Totally counterproductive. You know, you get this thing that flies in your face, and it's about time that someone had tried to sort of figure out how to get rid of this. And really, what was essentially a 70-year-old marketing technology of a billboard progressively getting tinier and tinier and tinier and more annoying is really what mobile advertising has become, right? And so we're like, how do we change this, right? And we noticed, hey, you have these moments, right? These moments of achievement, right? And these games that are already being played by tens of millions of people. So this is behavior that's occurring already. And so you're like, yay, you know, you're like, yay, all these yay E-moments. I call them E-moments. And you guys all get them, right? And so we said, hey, why not reward, right? And be there when they're happy. Be there when the consumer has already gone through this behavior pattern and are stoked and would love to receive something. Like, how many times have you just played something like, oh, geez, just another badge? Like, what if I got something really, you know, valuable for me and to the experience that I'm in? And so we've worked with brands across the board, and I would love to tell you more about how we did it with Dr. Pepper. But before Jim will talk about his philosophy around the things that he's doing.
Thank you, Brian. I think one of the best visuals here is the fact that you got a guy who is over 50 and a guy that's under 25 on the same stage together. Really speaks. It speaks to what the essence of this whole idea is. An old school marketer can team up with somebody and make a big difference in the marketplace. When we start this program, our consumers changing. The rapid speed of change is obviously increasing. The importance, though, for our relationship and our partnership with Initiative was grounded in the fact that they have to go out and do a great job for us in the traditional media, but now the expectation from my side of the equation is that they're now partners in helping us go out and find young startups like Kiip and be able to help us, which we can't staff by ourselves, be out there in the forefront and trying new and different things to build relevancy behind a brand like Dr. Pepper, who's been around for 125 years. So we start from an objective standpoint with clearly sitting down with Initiative and brief them around what our brand objectives are. Dr. Pepper is all about being one of a kind and providing one of a kind experiences, whether it's the product or in-game experiences. We want to be unique, we want to be differentiated. Based upon that, the brief that we did with Initiative, they went out and found Brian in a startup situation, and he allowed us to go in with a unique gaming reward system and be able to partner with him in actually developing the content because we were early on in the game. We actually built it customized for Dr. Pepper, and in so doing helped him launch his company, but it provided a unique reward, in-game reward systems for our gaming program. Dr. Pepper has a huge platform in gaming. And around MLG, we have a relationship with EA and Xbox. And the ability for us to partner with Brian and develop a system that basically aggregated and extended the time around the gaming experience, providing rewards as players and our consumers were involved in the actual game was incredibly unique and positioned us very, very well in the marketplace, and to this day, gaming for Dr. Pepper is incredibly important, and the ability to ladder up and provide the engagements that Kiip provides is terrific. Okay,
all right,
Brian?
So here's what it looks like. And we decided, hey, you know, one of the main themes of Dr. Pepper was being one of a kind. Let's find people when they feel like they're one of a kind. And I get it, yeah. And you've got sort of this moment of achievement when we actually decided, hey, let's actually find hardcore gamers that also happen to play mobile games, and sort of find people who are highly likely to also own a console. And the reward in this case was actually content that you could use in an EA game. This was through the partnership that Dr. Pepper had already, and actually showed us when we early on formed our product that both virtual and real rewards were very, very much so a reciprocal element that could bring together a brand and a consumer where they actually feel like they've been given value rather than simply being sucked out of an experience into something else. And so we wanted that value to be shown, and this is a quick sort of visual preview as to how it actually looked like in the experience. So you'd be in a game. This is a game called Sushi Boy Thunder, by the way. Super fun, very annoying sounds, but you will get addicted. You got a high score, you're like, yay! Little guy runs across the top, you just got something from Dr. Pepper, and it doesn't interrupt you, right? You can choose to interact with it, and then boom, someone tapped it and you decided to get a reward. And so we realized that this dynamic of using this moment and being able to find people and yet giving them the option and the choice. And by the way, our rewards, and I forgot to mention this earlier, are actually serendipitous. So there's one thing that I forgot to mention, which is you actually don't expect these rewards. They're not something that you're earning towards saying, oh, I hit level 10 and get this reward. We actually decided to make it a serendipitous moment. And rather, the marketing speak for this is surprise and delight, right? And then the psychological speak for this is positive intermittent reinforcement. We wanted to preserve sort of the nature of wanting to actually play the game and the intrinsic motivation behind that, rather than making it all about the reward, which was very important to all of us, to making a genuine engagement.
So I may not understand anything he's saying right now, but I do know results. And if you look up on the screen here, we got over 250,000 impressions based upon this one program that we ran. The redemption rate was incredible. It was 30% greater than anything we had ever seen in any type of reward type programming. And what really got me excited was the level of engagement and the extendability with our consumers. They were seeing and interacting with Dr. Pepper in a very positive way for an extended period of time. You just can't buy that. It was terrific.
And so what also happened, and Jim briefly touched on this, is that this was actually last year. I know it sounds like it's a brief period of time, but for startups it's a long period of time. It's like 10 years. We launched the company with these campaigns with Jim and Dr. Pepper and a few other major consumer brands. And what we quickly realized, and by the way, just a little bit of a contrast, like a year ago, when we ran this campaign, we were 6 people in like 15 games and reaching an audience of 10 million in the US. And now we're at 30 people in both San Francisco and New York. We reach an audience of 40 million, and we're about 500 games that are integrated with our SDK. And so things have grown quite a bit, and of course, kicking it off this way was very valuable. Now, one of the things that we realized in hindsight, and the way that Kiip was positioned, was incredibly powerful in showing people that, hey, the simple principle of why not actually give value to the consumer? And hey, maybe they'll like you after, right? And so this simple principle, I think, was very much so baked into this reciprocity element of how Kiip was built and what we all stand for in creating an amazing user experience. And the way we were positioned as a rewards network actually kind of made it very easy for people to love a reward rather than simply have it as an ad. And you'll never hear someone go like, sorry Google people, but like, I love AdMob, I love it. No one will ever say that they love AdMob, but people will say, I love Kiip. And that is what we're aiming for, is for people to really find a rewards network that they trust, where brands can interact in a platform that leverages this true reciprocal relationship, and by using something that people are already doing already. And that was the key. So we're really happy with what we did with Jim and the Dr. Pepper group, and yeah, we're really stoked.
So from a brand standpoint, we drove relevance and longer-term engagement. We did it at a very low cost. The return on investment on this program was phenomenal, which is always a good thing for a chief marketing officer to be able to go talk about. And I think the other piece of it was that the partnership yielded a couple of things. As we helped build the program together and helped launch it, they were able to, Kiip was able to benefit from the PR we put around the program, and that benefited them as they went out and started getting more publicly known for their platform. There's a subtle thing here as well, and as we were talking over breakfast this morning, the ability of a very traditional marketer, very traditional brand, to be able to partner and learn from a kid who's 21 years old, could be my son, and for him then to also understand about brand marketing and some of the traditional stuff, there's untold benefits there that hopefully both of our companies learn and grow from as we move forward. And I think that's one of the kind of the hidden benefits of the partnerships with startups.
And we do actually have some Kiip rewards, as they hinted later on. For questions, we have a limited edition Kiip iPhone case. And we may or may not be hosting a yacht party next to the Palais with Sharethrough after this panel later this afternoon. So that may or may not be an invite as a reward. So anyways, thank you very much. We really appreciate your time.
How can you not be inspired by that passion and that shameless self-promotion? Want to keep things going here. I thought that was great, gentlemen. Thank you very much. That was fantastic. I'm going to pass it off to Dan and Billy. Billy, congratulations on your award last night. Congrats to you and the whole Hasbro team.
Great, good morning. We're excited to be here with you. My name is Billy Lagor, and I'm the head of our US marketing group at Hasbro.
Dan Greenberg, founder and CEO of a company called Sharethrough.
So I wanted today just quickly talk to you about how Hasbro and Sharethrough came to partner together. And first, a little bit about our journey as a company that took us there. So Hasbro 10 years ago was a pretty traditional toy and game company. As things have evolved, Hasbro's really focused on becoming a branded entertainment company. And that's a big difference in how we approach the market. That means a focus on our content, on digital gaming, on all sorts of brand experiences beyond the traditional is key to how we're going to win with consumers. And at the heart of that is storytelling. And if you think about the kids' market, you think about the messages this week, right? The digital revolution is here, change has happened. What's different though, right, and especially when you look at Jim, myself, we saw this happen for our kids' market, for kids, teens, tweens. There's no digital revolution because this is what they know. They have always known about iPads and iPhones and cell phones, right? So if you think about how media and how content is consumed, right? For those of us over 25, we remember having TV shows. We remember having TV shows without DVRs. We actually had to be there on a certain night, a certain time. You were forced to watch a commercial, and you were forced to watch your TV show. Think about a tween. Tweens don't watch TV shows. They watch shows. And why aren't they TV shows? Because most of them aren't watching on TV. They're watching on a whole new type of screen that didn't even exist before. So as we think about being relevant to this audience, we need to really think how they're seeing the market and how they're seeing the evolution of content. And that's what brought us to working together with Sharethrough. We have terrific partners at Initiative, and every year we lay out what are our objectives? What are we trying to accomplish in terms of reaching our consumer? And one of the key things that we identified is we need to reach, particularly in this case, our teen audience, in the places where they are and the formats relevant to them. So we chose a brand, Rubik's Cube. So many of you may remember it's a 3D six-sided puzzle, really fun. I still can't successfully get all 6 sides someday. What we wanted to do is find a way to bring this to the teen market where they are, and do it in a way that's organic and that really is relevant to them and doesn't feel like we're trying to talk and advertise to them. And that's how Initiative brought us together with Dan, and we started our conversations.
Thanks, Billy. Super excited to be here. Yeah, so like Billy just talked about, I started this company, Sharethrough, with a notion about 4 years ago, actually, that I think in retrospect was potentially a naive notion, which has started to come true, that brands can produce content, video content, good enough for people to choose to actually want to spend time with it, as opposed to, like we've talked about, banner ads that interrupt you and pre-roll ads that interrupt you that you just want to skip, pop-ups, pop-unders, but truly good content. That was the underlying thesis of this company. If brands produced good content, they'd need distribution partners and a distribution platform and ad technology built for good content, not built for traditional advertising. So Billy came to us with this awesome Rubik's Cube campaign. We're going to show you the video in a bit. It's a 2-minute short film produced by Funny or Die. Great campaign, kind of a throwback. We all remember Rubik's Cube. But brought it to us and said, hey, we've got a challenge with this, and we need some help. What I wanted to briefly talk about today with Sharethrough, though, is not just the product. It was actually a glimpse under the curtain as to how we run the company, the underlying operating philosophy of the company. If there's any entrepreneurs in the audience, and actually anybody who's starting a company or started an agency or started a company within the past 2-3 years, 5, 6, 7 people, good. So I've got some advice for you guys and anybody else who's thinking about starting a company. It's this concept of customers as co-founders. I think it's right in line with what we've talked about today. It's, to me, the underlying philosophy of how you build a successful company in this new age of quick iterations and open internet. The concept is, instead of just getting into a hole, building a product, coming out a year later and saying, hey, I've got something, does somebody want to buy it from me? Starting from day one, locking arms with your customers. So between Hasbro and Sony Pictures and EMC and Mechanism and other companies that we've worked with over the past 4 years, we treat them not just like customers, we treat them like co-founders. The goal of this is to uncover problems. Companies are driven by problems. The most successful companies, I always give startup advice to the entrepreneurs I advise, and the advice is always don't marry your first solution, marry the problem. So find a customer, marry their problem, don't marry the solution. And so in this case, we've got a 2-minute awesome short film, and the problem here is post and pray, crossing your fingers, posting online, and praying to the viral gods that gets picked up. Just doesn't work. And traditional banner ads just don't make sense for good quality content if the goal is really driving views and shares. So wrapped our arms around that problem and said, hey, how do we get views and shares for this teen-targeted, awesome 2-minute short film? I'm going to let Billy talk a little bit more about the actual video itself.
Yeah, so very simple objective with this. It was really, how do we make sure that Rubik's Cube is relevant to this teen audience? And we'll let the video speak for itself.
Nice, good sound.
Mail call.
Dang it, Gina. We've had 15 bicycle thefts in the last 3 weeks.
Is that a lot?
Yeah. You think we have time for love letters right now?
Well, I thought you might be interested in this package.
What do you think that is? Tanner McGloin, 3rd Precinct.
Hello, officers.
But we shut down his operation months ago.
Did you get my little gift?
Sweet mustard on rye.
It's a colorful toy puzzle, and I want you to solve it.
Forget it, punk.
Very well. Then you'll meet these demands. 1, I want a helicopter.
To escape it?
No, to fly around my room with a remote control.
But you know as well as we do, your mom's gonna get mad.
I don't care.
Horseradish, she's gone insane.
2, I want 100 grand.
The candy bar?
No, you knucklehead. $100,000.
We don't have either.
Very well. Then I dare you to solve the Rubik's Cube.
Here goes nothing. I think I almost got this thing.
No! Listen, you little bad guy. What happens? I can't do it.
Then the colorful squares won't line up forever.
What's all the commotion?
Chief.
Get your acts together.
Who is that? What's happening?
She did it.
You're being outwitted by a 10-year-old. Do you know how hard it is for me to explain this to the commissioner? Do you?
We're sorry.
Awesome. So I wouldn't say exactly targeted at this audience, but definitely targeted at the teen audience. What I wanted to quickly talk about was just how we actually got distribution for this campaign. Like I said before, when we started this company, we said what we're not going to do is interruption. We're not going to interrupt people with pre-rolls. We're not going to interrupt people with banner ads. But instead, we're going to drive this company based on choice and what we call native ad experiences. So what we've done with this campaign and what we do with every campaign is run it through native placements. Things like, when I think about native, if you haven't heard that word, the concept is sponsored stories on Facebook are native to Facebook. Promoted videos on a video site like YouTube are native to YouTube. Promoted tweets on Twitter, native to Twitter. You get the concept. What Sharethrough does is create native experiences across the rest of the web on blog platforms like WordPress, on sites like Forbes, and with partners across the rest of the web, app world, game world. In this case, I think we targeted a lot of Facebook games, a lot of Facebook apps, video sites like Devour to drive discovery and sharing of this content. Quick snapshot, too, just of how we went about optimizing this campaign. In a traditional banner campaign, the goal is interrupt a bunch of people and drive a bunch of clicks. This case, it's not about declining click-through rates or increasing skip rates, but instead it's about views, sharing, and engagement. So we optimized towards audience that drove the most sharing, and optimized towards sites and placements, again, that drove the most sharing and engagement. Billy can talk about the actual results, though.
Right. So as Jim said, as marketing leads, our job is really to drive results, drive sales. And I can tell you that the results were well above all of the targets that we set. So as you can see up here, over 500,000 views, nearly 5 million impressions, over 10,000 total social engagements, and most importantly, a 44% lift in purchase intent. And the closing thought I would give you, which is really what Jim hearkened to, is this is really about partnership, right? Obviously, the business results are key, but also the culture change and the way we work together is key. So if you think about what we can learn from each other, initiative Sharethrough Hasbro, we're able to bring out the best in terms of Sharethrough's understanding of what do companies need, how do we work, and what Dan does is challenge me every day to how do I stay innovative on top of things and think about where the technology is going, where the consumer is going. So it really is important as you think about building these relationships between countries and entrepreneurs, it's the product, but it's also the relationship, the learning, and the culture growth for both groups.
Thanks, guys.
So before we get started here with some questions, I just wanted to share with the group that a very not a very well-known fact, but the detective in that in that video was actually inspired by one Jim Trebilcock. Just kidding. One of the things that I've seen over the last few years is a proliferation of just what seems to be additional entrepreneurial activity. And I'm just kind of curious to see what people think about, in terms of what's actually driving that. Is it, at the end of the day, is it the consumer asking for greater ideas? Is it marketers out there kind of demanding greater creativity and innovation? Is it Silicon Valley looking to push its own agenda and ultimately, have more exits as it relates to the investments that they make? So this is a question for the group, but I'll go ahead and start with Dan.
Sure. So if the question is, why are startups starting up? I think, to me, it comes from personal founder motivation. I mean, I can tell you the reason I started my company is based on this concept that I don't want to just live in this existing world as we see it today and just operate on this traditional hamster cycle. We want to build something new. And I think Silicon Valley and New York, and honestly entrepreneurship anywhere in the world, is driven by that underlying human need or human desire to build something new. In Silicon Valley, I think today, especially in the ad tech world, the fact of the reality is that people are changing. As people change, problems change. We talked about before, companies are driven by problems, and sometimes bigger companies just can't keep up with the change of problems. So I think Silicon Valley companies are started up to solve those new problems.
I think honestly it's because there's no excuse anymore. People come to me all the time and they go, oh, I'm a non-technical co-founder and I want to start something, and you hear this all the time, right? You can learn that stuff, right? Go on tutorials online. Like when I started off and I was trying to learn to crack Photoshop and do my thing and do my whole design, like it was much more difficult. Like the content and the ability to learn was definitely a lot more difficult than it is now. And you have companies like Code Academy that's democratizing learning and everything. So the knowledge is there. That's number one. The second is the movie The Social Network. And so, no, I swear, where it's all of a sudden it became sexy to start a company. Now, there's two groups, I think, obviously, the ones that are really doing it for the wrong reasons and the ones that are doing it for the right reasons. But I think sort of definitely the democratization of the content and learning that's available, the technologies that are out there, everything's open source. You can buy gigabytes of bandwidth and storage and pennies on the dollar, and sometimes it's even like free. So, a kid could basically deploy a giant service a la chat roulette and have the ability to sort of, change the way people communicate just overnight type of thing. And that's going to continue to happen more and more frequently.
I think from a client standpoint, it's really based on a need. We have a traditional marketing organization, and honestly, we don't have the time, the expertise, or the risk tolerance to go out and try and hack into Photoshop or whatever you were doing. But the ability to find out there and partner in ways and utilize our resources then to translate what they do into business building activities. That's what we do. We can't be out there with all the new things that are going on and actually be able to fund it or resource it from a human capital standpoint. It's much better to partner with our agency and go out and have them validate and vet potential partners out there for us so that we can then concentrate on our core business.
And I would add to that, because Jim's spot on, is if you think about the tremendous speed and pace of evolution of this market, there's so many things happening. There's a lot of paths. If you think about the three drivers of this, you have technology and innovation. So just all the new things that consumers are seeing. There's a change in the consumer experience, how consumers experience brands, how they experience marketing. And then there's this explosion of information and data around consumers. For a company like Jim's or mine to look at every possibility among every one of those three verticals would be impossible. So as we work with Initiative, we identify which of those are most important, and how do we find the startups that, being startups, have the flexibility and the lack of constraints that a big company may have to explore those. And that gives us the chance to really find and partner with and invest in the best ones.
And those are all really great points. I mean, I think a lot has changed in the last few years, even from a venture capital community, call it 5 years ago. New startups looking to get funded were looking for a minimum of a few $1 million due to technology, or would come and they would need to have their prototype built from soup to nuts, and not just be a prototype but a working platform. And I think the expectations have changed quite a bit within the last year or two, where now a prototype is okay. I work with VCs that are looking to make investments as little as $25,000 or a few $100,000 versus a required commitment of $2 to $5 million. So I think because of that, there's also now just this great proliferation and acceleration of just tonnage of companies that are out there with their idea. So I think the onus on us as agencies and marketers is really to do our jobs and to help marketers filter through all of these companies and find the ones that we think that are interesting, and then more importantly, educate them on the objectives of the marketer so that they can come in and utilize their platform and present great ideas, and so that we can kind of move the ball forward faster than just get kind of lost in the shuffle. So I think that was all really good stuff. Jim, we've saw 2 great case studies this morning. Obviously, you presented one of them. Has your experience been working with startups always been good? And what are some of the hygiene factors that you feel as an organization that you guys need to cover off on?
So, no, I mean, all our experiences haven't been like Kiip, but that gets back to the relationship that we have with you and with Initiative to be able to go out and be very clear on what our objective is from a business standpoint, and being able to sit down and have a real transparent conversation about that and what they know about how we operate as a company, the ethics, the code of conducts, and all the different things that are important to us as marketers. They vet all that for us, and it really raises the bar in terms of finding the right partnerships. And Billy spoke about it, but when you get involved with a startup, it is about the partnership. You have to be able to sit down and have a conversation with a Brian and understand what they're about, what their vision is, and build a true partnership, both from whatever they're going to deliver business-wise, but also on a personal level. When you're dealing with a startup, a lot of the success is going to be dependent upon the ability of the founder to be able to actually bring to life their business. I need to know that. I need to be able to look them in the eye and be able to understand what they're about and feel confident that they're going to deliver for my company. And I think that's the thing that is kind of the way we work together with Initiative and vet things out. But it's not always positive, and there are going to be failures out there. But when they fail, they're usually on their dime, not mine. So that's okay.
Thanks, dude. Thanks.
What I would add to that, and I think the key word here is partnership. I think when we started working with Initiative, they know that the word that we hate is client, right? Because when you're a client, that means there's someone telling someone else what to do. As a partner, you learn and you invest together. You set mutual objectives. So when you start a conversation, and again, share through very positive examples. There's always a range, as Jim said, but it's really about that understanding and making sure that we have the objectives and that there's flexibility to make the product fit our objective, and our objective is making sure our objective is relevant with the product that's being offered. The other word I would add is trust, because if you think about a startup, there are some measures to get a sense of kind of the viability, right? Is there good venture funding? Is there a track record? Are there other partners already in development? But at the core, as you talk and you build this relationship, you really understand very quickly, is this someone that we can both understand each other's objectives, and do we trust that we're going to be able to do that together?
But I love the structure in which Initiative had set up when we first worked with you guys around how there was this innovations team that was really closely working with us to sort of shepherd the process and communicate very regularly. I think the communication was key. And we always want to know what's going on, right? Because we're not, as a smaller company, it's like something like this happened, like in the beginning, we're like, yeah, we're all accelerating, right? We having that understanding of what the feedback is always very key. And I think when you try to take away all the fluff on top of really the core of it, it's like good people, right? I think I really enjoy spending time with the people that were involved in the campaign and with all the Initiative folks. It's like, it sounds so cliche, but there's some brands that are awesome and super sexy, but then you end up spending time with them, you're like, oh God, you just don't get it. And it's like,
Are you calling me sexy?
yeah.
Okay.
Don't take it too far. But it's like that, that's really what I enjoyed so much about it.
Cool. So look, how do you go from that comment? I'm going to turn it back to Dan and Brian. So we heard a little bit about from the perspective of the marketer. How about from the perspective of the startup? What are some of the critical success factors that you have from what probably started as what was a great idea, and at least in your head was a great idea, into a business that now ultimately works in the marketing space?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I'll echo what I said before around this concept of customers as co-founders. I think if you treat your customer like a co-founder, you start with what Billy just said, which is trust. You have to trust a co-founder to start a company with a co-founder. Right. And if you think of your customer as a co-founder, not just on the first day, but on the next day and every day since then, I think it changes the way you think about the customer relationship. Whether it's you call it a partner, whether you literally think about it as a co-founder, our customers don't own equity in our company, but they own the future vision of the product, and they own the evolution of the company. They own every iteration. And so when I think about how to work or how to choose which brands we spend time with or choose which agencies we spend time with, it's the ones that want to be co-founders. It's the ones that I think are personally motivated by this concept of, like I said, building things and creating things from scratch. So we err on the side of working with agencies and partners and brands who really want to be part of that process.
Yeah, so Dan and I are kind of a little further on, you know, and it's kind of weird looking back in the last 2 years how, and you've been even earlier, right? You were like 4 years.
4 years
yeah,
now.
4 years, dude. So I've been doing this for 2 years now, and you know, it's kind of surreal to look back and be like, geez, you know, people actually like this stuff and actually bought it, and like we began to sort of work with them to develop and continue to learn. The challenge always from a founder and perspective is focus, right? Because you have a lot of people around you always throwing you ideas and whatnot, but I quickly realized that sometimes they're throwing ideas at you just for the sake of throwing it at you, just to see how you react. And you're like, oh yeah, you just accept everything, and and start doing everything. You end up spreading yourself way too thin. So we've had to really sort of fine tune our process of figuring out what exactly we want to do really, really well. And what we're going to do really, really well is find these moments and target better rewards at people, right? So that's sort of like the number one thing we want to focus on continuing to do and sort of building out this vision of this rewards layer over the world. But at the same time, you know, remembering that the customer as the co-founder, you know, it requires a certain type of individual. You have very transactional marketers, which we all know who you are, and you have numbers you want to show and rap reports and fun big things. But you also have people who are more, I guess, core in their DNA to understanding the more soft aspects and not just dismissing something that seemed to be qualitatively cool, but actually embracing it and building a story around it.
Right on. Jim Heitner, I think we should refer to ourselves as co-founders from now on. I think one of the advantages that agencies, you know, get caught up with is, you know, we work with large publishers and vendors because they're proven. They can walk in with a reel or 50 different case studies of what they've been able to do and XYZ result. And, you know, they all have experience working with large brands. Is the reverse true with startups? And, you know, what have your learnings, Jim, been to date?
I think the key for us again is we have to, and we're in a category where relevance with that 18 to 24-year-old is absolutely critical. And for us, it's about continuously looking to agitate and not be complacent. Companies such as Kiip, Sharethrough, all help us maintain that relevancy in a way that you know, traditional marketers would never be able to envision. But it does come down to having the right idea connected with the brand. You know, we talked about Dr. Pepper, one of a kind. This is a one of a kind experience that Kiip provided to our consumers in an environment that they absolutely are crazy about, gaming, right? So it's about being able to tap into that and build that over time, but it's a continuous process. It never is going to be, you know, stationary, and I think that's one of the challenges for traditional marketers is this world is changing so fast. You have to be able to tap into the brain power and the knowledge that a Brian has in order to be able to be out front and relevant continuously.
One thing I'm going to quickly jump in on is the fact that now when you're partnering with smaller companies, or at least the earlier stage startups, the speed of iteration and being able to continue to learn from what you've done in like the first few hours and then quickly tweak. I'm pretty sure when your campaign first launched, you're like, tweak, and then magic happened later on. It's like, it's much faster than like, deploying a giant billboard and you're like, oh shit, I have to like tear it down now and whatever. With digital, everything's a lot faster, right? You can really learn quickly, and unless there's a massive mess up, which usually doesn't happen when you have good planning with folks like you, is you have the ability to again iterate, and that iteration is so key when you're thinking about partnering companies like us. It's not like a big and crazy oh my god, if it goes out there, it's out there. It's that you can pull things back, you can learn things, you can tweak things out. It's really great to iterate, and that concept works really well in a startup environment, in the way we operate our businesses, and it works really well in our relationships with our customers as well.
And in fairness, not every campaign we run is successful, but it's more importantly, we're an iterative organization, is that we learn from what's worked really well and what maybe didn't work, and we continue to evolve. I'm going to take a minute to open it up to the audience in case there's any questions, and then I want to bring it back to the panel for one last question. But does anyone in the audience have a question?
You got a mic behind you?
I can hear you.
Yikes, I wasn't prepared for this. I hope my voice is better after last night. So you just talked about the iterative process and the speed after you've launched something with being able to change and adjust and so on. And I'm sitting here, I work on brands that require nimbleness, change very fast themselves in terms of when things are launching or when a program is launching. And my question is probably two or threefold. Lead time with entrepreneur companies, how long does it take to get something up and running, provided we are able to provide clear and concise objectives for you? But second to that is, how quickly can you shift something, a start time or a launch time? Because I'm really interested in this area, but we are very traditional in a lot of ways, but require a lot of nimbleness from you.
Let me be super real with you. I mean, the typical entrepreneur answer when we're pitching, which we're not right now, is to go, oh yeah, instant, like 2 seconds. Which usually never happens because usually it's you guys that are slow with assets and whatnot. I'm kidding. But it's really a mutual thing, and understanding that this stuff is instant, right? You have our network is connected, Dan's network is connected. We can change stuff, pull stuff out instantly. Our stuff is all based on connected devices, so the minute something gets changed, it's not local. It's all from the server. All this magic stuff that flies in from satellite. But it's really so the answer directly to your question is yes. Most of this stuff in theory is incredibly quick, but it is really the education in the beginning of showing you what the platform's capable of doing, and then at least hopefully somehow helping you guys internalize how this actually impacts your brand. Where the nimbleness is about seasons or seasonality or new product launches or whatever it is, like tell us, right? So we know, okay, yeah, because Mother's Day is coming up and or just came by, or Father's Day was just last week. These types of seasonality-based product launches is something that we need to be nimble on. Then we know we can prep in advance for, and these things get deployed very quickly. And so it's really about sort of planning ahead and understanding the nature of the product and the cycles that are part of it, and then working around that. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden that's got to shift. Mm-hmm. Either before or after, generally after. Yeah. Are you able to switch it out there? Yeah, I think it's the way we sell too. So one thing you guys should be very aware of when you're thinking about working with startups is how do they position their pitch, right? If it's, oh yeah, we'll guarantee you this much in this one particular, property, that's a red flag. Because what they're doing is making promises they cannot fulfill. And usually when you delay things because of something that happened on the client side, it really messes stuff up, right? But if you hear sort of us being very cautious, going, hey, listen, we'll do a buffer period, 2-3 weeks kind of thing. We'll have a few, there's a primary and secondary publishers here, sort of being very realistic, then there's much more flexibility so that nimbleness can actually occur. But when someone makes promises that you just know they cannot fulfill, that's a bullshit detector, and you should know that these guys are most likely going to get really hit hard if something happens that requires nimbleness.
I was wondering if your product could be only international or also focused on a specific market, for example.
Yeah, so it's geolocated. So the vision eventually is I could find everybody who's playing games within this Pahade and give them a reward or an app or something that they're using. And so we have the capability of going into long and lat and down to a zip code or postal code or whatever. It's just that the capabilities of the brand to be able to fulfill or be able to work with us in different regions.
Okay, thanks.
Over here.
It's like a bike race.
How much time between the Kiip and Dr. Pepper relationship as far as the gaming delivery of it? How long did it take?
What do you mean?
The time from when we started our partnership until we launched the particular program?
Absolutely.
No, this was a while back. I was like a month?
Yeah, it was very short.
Yeah.
I think there were a few months of initial planning.
Yeah.
In terms of, okay, hey, we've made a connection. I think our team helped kind of facilitate the communication. But in terms of from go, okay, this is something really cool that we want to do. Let's get the assets and let's then activate. I think it was 30 days or less.
I think one of the beauties of the program too was the fact that we already had a major stake in gaming itself with EA, Xbox, Major League Gaming. So when the partnership was a beautiful thing from the standpoint of the company was enhancing something that we already had in place. And I think that really helped from a speed standpoint. And then their ability to work with my group and with Initiative to tailor it and get it done. It was really quite quick.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think the beauty of this, again, it was an extension of something, of a commitment that the brand was already making in the space. They were already committed to gaming. This was just a great way of extending that message and making it directly relevant and interesting back to the end consumer. Any other questions from the audience?
Jim and Billy, I wondered if you could just make a few comments about what learning you've taken from this that is affecting other parts of your companies, because you both work very specifically in marketing, but of course this impacts on the overall company. Just wondering what you've learned from that.
Yeah, I would just say a couple of thoughts. First is, at the core of everything we do is the consumer. So I think when you have a partnership like this, one of the biggest things that we gain is where the consumer's heading, right? Consumers move faster than big companies. So when you partner with a company like a Sharethrough, like a Kiip, you're a bit more on that cutting edge. So it keeps us kind of more in tune where consumers are going. And then the other piece, I think, is just it keeps us more in tune on technologies in general. So if you think about how we keep up to speed on what's going on, it's through Initiative, it's through the partnerships like Sharethrough, like Kiip, that give us the pulse on the overall industry and keep us nimble and give us that reminder that we need to stay flexible and fast as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it is a real mindset shift that affects certainly the marketing team, but we're in a very traditional industry. We have hundreds of distributors out there that sell our products that aren't at the forefront. They look to us as a company to be out there and connecting in the new ways and the relevant ways. And it is a huge mindset change from the standpoint of having to stay in touch, having to really stay on top of what is changing, and the speed of change is unbelievable. And it is a real challenge for a traditional marketing organization to be able to keep abreast of that. And these types of interactions, just 30 minutes this morning over coffee with Brian, will help us trigger and think differently as well. And that's just a huge, huge benefit from these partnerships.
That's great. So last question to my emerging media panelists, since you guys aren't startups anymore. What advice would you give to entrepreneurs looking to enter this space, and vice versa to Billy and Jim? What advice would you give to marketers that are looking to engage with startups?
I'll start. you have preconceptions when you first start things, right? You'll be like, oh, it's gonna be super glamorous, like up and down Madison Avenue. Yeah, it doesn't happen that way. And be very patient. Understand that much like every industry you're entering, understand the hubs, aka the people. So there are certain folks within certain industries, Dave Rosner being one of them from Initiative, and he was the guy, actually was the scout who discovered us. You find these hubs and really learn from them and get to know them and really use it as an educational experience. And turn off the pitch machine. Sometimes when you pitch all the time, you end up talking way too much, which I realize I do. It's something I'm working on. But you also, learn about, when you just sit back and just be like, okay, what exactly are you thinking about right now? Like that sort of shows so much to help you craft. So certainly, yeah, I would say it's like a couple things. It's definitely make sure you keep an open mind, assess your industry, but don't have too many preconceptions. And then when you go in there, be patient about how this thing will evolve, and eventually the validation will come. And it'll feel like in the beginning that nobody seems to like what you did. But then after a while, you like, geez, I'm on stage with a guy who I ran a campaign with a year ago, and he likes it. And it took a year for me to feel like I was happy about it. And so it's like, it's really awesome to sort of just be learning at that level of patience and understanding how that flows into the product you're creating.
And here you are now in France with the yacht later on tonight.
So from a client standpoint, I would say never be satisfied.
All right.
Positively agitate, look for the new things, and to a degree, humble yourself. This used to be pretty easy stuff, this marketing business compared to today. And I think the technology and the way that Brian or Dan, the way they think, the way they approach the consumer is totally different. And if you think you know everything as a marketer, and many of us do, you don't. And you got to go in with that kind of a mindset of asking questions and really trying to understand and then translating this new world into things that work for your business.
Yeah, so my single piece of advice, I think, for any startup founder or agency founder, or I think anybody working in any business, to be honest, is to be proud of what you do. And I think when you say it, it sounds obvious. But the way that I think about our company, and the reason I'm proud about Sharethrough, is this concept of moving towards a better ad experience where you're not interrupted and you're not trying to skip TV ads and skip pre-roll ads. So I'm proud every day to wake up and actually work with big brands and awesome creative agencies and creative directors and the guys who are creating great content. I think the fact of that pride, obviously tempered with being humble, but the pride around the product and the pride around just even the market that you're attacking, that's going to drive everything day to day. The startup ride is a slog, and it's an amazing journey, and everybody loves it if you get through it with pride. I think when you fall below that point of pride, that's when things get tough. So that's my advice, is just stay proud of what you're working on. And if you feel like the litmus test is, hey, I don't really feel that excited or proud about this, or my mom wouldn't be proud about this, then focus on something else.
Yeah. And what I would say is it related to that. It's really, I think, both as a marketer and as a startup is the power of the idea and the passion. As a marketer, what you get excited about is the idea that you're hearing, the differentiation, but also the passion and the belief of the person who's presenting it. So having that kind of idea really motivates me as a marketer, but also I think it's important that as an entrepreneur isn't afraid to bring that to the table. And I think the other piece is keeping a dialogue from the beginning versus a pitch, having a conversation. Really listening and learning on both sides is the way that we're going to understand if there's a fit, but also how we can both get better. And however the first conversation goes, it may be a fit, it may not be a fit, but I think both groups will understand better what worked and what didn't, and will either inspire us to work with each other or figure out what the next step is. But I think having that good, hard, honest conversation, not being afraid to ask the hard questions, is really what makes both groups better.
It's great. Well, I know as a former entrepreneur and now as a leader of an agency, I feel inspired by what you guys have shared with us today. So thank you very much. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Well done.